So let's have a little look at Joe chatting to Brian O'Driscoll last night.
Well, I would have been privy to that, where I'd have been part of teams where on the way to a game, a doctor would have walked down the bus on the way to the game and inquired as to who wanted what in advance of it. For me, for the last couple of seasons, anyway, would have been part of, my match prep would have been a Difene and a couple of Cocodamol.
What would they do for you?
Again, just a painkiller, if I was carrying something, that it would just... do you know what? It almost became like habit, where it gave me a fighting chance if I wasn't feeling 100%, that it might have leveled it up. And
which might have been most of the time.
Which was probably a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that is the reality of it. And
if you...
I wouldn't have been the only one doing that.
Yeah.
It was usually the older players, just to try and get you, balance the equilibrium almost of feeling okay. And then I'm sure at times without, in my subconscious, I would have taken it because it became part and parcel, where maybe I could have done without it. But again, if it's perfectly legal and there's no need for TUEs, or any of that, give yourself a chance of playing your best game.
So it was almost akin to your glucose drink and your energy drink and your whatever.
I also had caffeine before games.
Yeah.
I'd have three little tablets of caffeine, like chewing gum. Chew them for a certain period of time. But like, you get into a routine where I knew exactly what I did. I had it down to the final seconds, chewing, and as soon as I ran out onto the pitch, I'd bin it.
So I wasn't particularly surprised.
No, I don't think a lot of people were, to be fair. If you've been following the conversation around rugby, or even if you just had a general sense of how sport works at the top level, I don't think your floor hit your mouth hit the ground when you saw that last night. I think that was almost to be expected, I would have thought.
Yeah, and look, he's been involved in sport that long.
I think, by the way, he should be applauded for being so candid.
Yeah.
He could have very easily sidestepped that question.
Yeah.
Very easily. Yeah. And he decided to just be totally honest.
And I think it's the fact that Brian O'Driscoll says it. It's the reason it's front page of their front app, wherever, when you're reading it this morning. So a player that I played with is joining us on the line. Stephen Reid joins us. Really, thanks for coming on, pal.
No problem, Keith. Joe, how are you?
Stephen, how you doing?
So, Reid,
yeah, good.
Reid, we just heard Brian O'Driscoll there. It's made big news over here, and the fact that you're taking these types of supplements and medication to kind of get you through phases. And obviously, I've spoken to you before on this show about the injury troubles you had, and I would have seen it at first hand. And take out the equation. The injury you had. Go back to maybe when you first started playing first team football at Millwall. I remember when I was at Wolves, and you'd see the senior players taking these anti-inflams, and they were just getting popped out by the medical staff, and you're looking around thinking, well, why do they need it? They're obviously wear and tear issues at latter stages of their career. Did you have experiences of that at Millwall at an early age?
To be honest, Keith, not really. Looking back at sort of when I made my debut and as a young player at Millwall, it wasn't really something that I saw too much, or whether that was just not paying attention. You're just sort of focusing on your own performance. Whether they were around as much then. Obviously, when I broke into the team at Millwall, it was in League One. The cost of medication maybe it wasn't the same as when you go to clubs that at a higher level, but it wasn't really something I paid too much attention to or really got involved in taking, sort of in that early stage of my career. Definitely at Mill, it was more later stages, and when I did start getting the injuries and the more serious injuries as I went along, to be fair.
I do remember at Wolves, certainly as a young pro, not so much youth team, when you're on the periphery of the first team dressing room, you're in and around, but you don't really see the ins and outs. When you go into that dressing room on a full-time basis, and you're travelling with the first team, and you're seeing what they're taking, and in training, all players come in with a bit of a dodgy this, dodgy that, whatever, or they've got a knee issue, and I genuinely remember them being popped out like Smarties. The the anti-inflammatories, genuinely. And I was like, it became like, oh, maybe I should be taking these. And at one stage I was going in saying, can I have one of them? I've got a bit of it. And I don't know whether it was just trying to fit in or be cool, or I should be having these. But, you know, I remember thinking, these are so easy to get. Like, I didn't really have to ask him for a Voltron, but I just got given one.
Is that a prescription? Is that a prescription?
At that stage, when I was at Mill, I didn't really even venture into the medical room, physio room. You know, an hour before training, a few of us would be out there pinging the balls about, practicing free kicks. Didn't really step foot in the physio room or see much of what was going on, what the lads might be taking. But sort of later on, you become more aware of it. You become, you know, privy to what's going on in the medical room, what you need to get out there, what you need to train, definitely what you need to train and to play games. And that obviously came a little bit later, at a later date for me. But I'm sitting there nodding. I just listened to your bit with Brian and just nodding away, and the bits you said there, Keith, as well. It's something that it did play a big part of definitely the later stages of my career, that's for sure.
So give us your experience then at your worst, at the height of your use of anti-inflammatories or painkillers, to give people a sense of things. I mentioned Jacques Berger in that magazine article. He said for the last 3 years of his career, he was taking stuff every day just to get through training, get through matches, obviously. How bad did it get for you? Because we know about your injury issues.
To be honest, with mine, it got that bad that even no matter how many anti-inflammatories or painkillers I would take, it got to the stage where I was having my knee drained weekly. So probably wouldn't train. If I played on a Saturday, I often wouldn't train till the Thursday, Friday. Possibly have my knee drained on the Thursday, train on the Friday, and then play on the Saturday, because the anti-inflammatories, no matter the strongest Voltaren I had were 100 milligrams, I think they were, but even that wasn't enough to get all the swelling off my knee at the time. And that's when, you know, if you remember my last 3 games for Ireland, probably my best games for Ireland, I then had to get the major knee surgery to try and sort the problem out once and for all. It helped it, no doubt about that, but still, the last few years of my career, it was, you know, every other day, and probably the main time for me would be the night before a game. Would have a strong anti-inflammatory, you know, to try and settle the knee down overnight. Would still have to ice my knee the morning of a game, and then have an anti-inflammatory before the game to get out there and try and get through it. But it was still a knee that was swollen constantly for 5 to 6 years of playing.
See, there's a few aspects to the coverage and what we're talking about. So, firstly, there's the damage it's possibly doing to your knee by taking the medication to get out there long term, and where it's going to leave players when they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Secondly, there's the potential damage of taking strong medication on a very regular basis for what it does for your insides, your stomach and your liver, and the problems down the line, stomach ulcers and liver and various things. And then thirdly, the other debate, which is more of a philosophical one, but there is a worry certainly that, a bit like a young Keith Andrews here taking them when he doesn't need them, where does that come, you know, in the whole area of performance enhancing, if you're just taking stuff which is legal technically and is absolutely fine to take, but if you don't necessarily need it that much, you're just in the habit of taking it, then philosophically, is that ethically right? They're the 2 or 3 big areas I think people are throwing around, Stephen.
Yeah, on the first, you mentioned on the first one, it was, I think it comes down to the individual and performance, and for me, I think actually later on in my career, I think you was finding more and more players that actually wouldn't play with issues that maybe I'd play with, that probably Keith would play with. I think players are getting a lot more knowledge on injuries to their body, more conscious of how their body's feeling, and it's personal preference. For me, I just wanted to get out there, and I didn't really think of any consequences later on down the line. You're just thinking of getting fit for the Saturday game, for the game on the Wednesday, especially, you know, I think you've got to factor in my contracts at the time. They sort of became, towards the end, pretty much pay as you play. So it was all heavily weighted on appearances. That adds another problem into the mix, in the fact that you need to get out there. You know, for family reasons and to get your appearance money, because it's so heavily weighted on appearances that you're pushing your body that little bit more to get out there. I was always, my last few years, I was probably 50% fit anyway. And maybe I just thought to give me that extra couple of percent, if it was going to help me get out onto the pitch and give me a little bit more peace of mind getting out onto the pitch, I had no hesitation in taking it. What I would say is that it was never pushed by any medical staff. I was never, forced to take anything, and the players that I played with weren't in general. I just wanted to get out onto the pitch and try everything that I could to get the knee in a fit enough position to try and perform to the best.
Myself and Reid would be similar in our stance on trying to get fit, I think, for certain games and pushing through pain barriers, etc. We would have played with certain players where you think, come on, you can play with that, it's a big game Saturday, but they preserved themselves a little bit better. And Stephen's also right in terms of when we were at Blackburn together, the medical staff there, they would give you the options, they would suggest certain things, but it was never pushed and you would come down to the individual. But throughout my career, for instance, not just anti-inflams, that angle, if you go down the cortisone injection route, like I remember having these cortisones like in my knee, in my Achilles, and like you've no idea the damage that it is going to do, but you're that desperate to just play that you'll do anything really, won't you?
It's scary, really. It's probably scary that I played against Arsenal for an hour when I was at West Brom with a broken leg. I had a fracture in my fibula. I had a clash with my heel, our own keeper. So it was just a little bit lower than the knee. So instantly I'm thinking, I've done something to my knee, felt really sore. What probably didn't happen is that we went out on our Christmas do for 2 days in London with the team after. That probably didn't help matters. But I played for an hour with a fracture in my leg. So after that, I actually thought, you know what? It's actually scary.
Yeah.
That you're putting your body through some of these things that like now I'm not playing. I might be in pain for whatever reason it might be, but because you're that used to playing through pain, playing through swelling, doing what you can to get fit, actually, if there is something going on, you might, in a way, think to yourself, just get on with it. I'm used to dealing with pain and just getting through it. So after that, I thought, you know what, it's a little bit scary what you put your body through at times.
And I presume it's very easy for it to become a habit for players if even they don't need it. They just, Brian sort of said last night.
Superstition as well.
It's just, it was like my energy drink. It was like my caffeine tablet. It's just, I just take it.
Part of
it's part of the adrenaline. It's part of the buzz of the occasion that you got to get yourself up to a certain pitch, Stephen.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I probably got caught up in that myself, in a habit of taking them. To be honest, the day I finished my career, I don't think I've had an anti-inflammatory since, to be honest. I've had a few issues with the knee, but, literally overnight, that was it. The game-ready ice machine was put to one side, no more anti-inflammatories, no more painkillers, and, that was actually a nice moment. But, yeah, I think you do get into a habit of it. I agree with what Brian said about, the availability of the drugs and the anti-inflammatories and the painkillers. They're readily available. If a player wants them, then they're there.
Reid, you've been in a Premier League dressing room with current players up until a few months ago at Crystal Palace. Has there been a change? We mentioned about maybe players now do look after themselves a little bit better in that regard, and in terms of not potentially playing through certain issues. I know we've spoken before about Wilfried Zaha is probably a little bit different in the way he's desperately wanting to play. But in the main, are they a little bit different now in the way maybe we started or in the peak of our careers?
I think, just going back to that fact, I think players maybe in our era, in our generation, maybe would play through things. Maybe we didn't have quite the information and knowledge that's available now to know what's going on in your body. But still, yet again, if it's a difference between getting a player on the pitch or not, or getting your best players out there, then it's definitely a price I was willing to pay as a player to try and settle whatever injury it may be down, to try and mask the pain, if you like, for another 90 minutes to get out there. But it's still available. But I do think that with the advances in
a bit more considered
what else,
now.
Yeah, I think I think if with the prehabs that the players do, with all the medical advancements, with the monitoring of training loads, and I think we're just trying to get to the point where we're doing all we can to keep the players as fit as possible.
Before we let you go,
without the use of medication.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, look, it's a perfect concoction. Stephen's outlined perfectly well there. When you bring up pay-to-play contracts and your family and your livelihood, and also your own ego, you want to play, it's your own, you get one career. It's a perfect concoction whereby you're desperate to play and you're willing to put your body on the line, both short-term and long-term. And then from the club's point of view, as much as they, quote-unquote, value you as a person, you are just a multi-million-pound asset.
They
want you to play.
Well.
They want you on the pitch. They love you when you're on the pitch. Do what you have to do to get on the pitch.
Yeah.
And so if you're desperate to play and they're desperate for you to play, and this is
only going to be one outcome. You're playing.
It's a perfect kind of environment for people to lose the run of themselves, I think, is the point.
Yeah, and I'd say it's just, obviously you picked up on a couple of points before about later on in life.
Have you had any problems with insides or anything like that?
Yeah, my knees. I had a moment when I was at Palace. I played, 5-10 yard ball into a training session and felt an uncomfortable click in the knee, and sort of for the past 6 months now, it's flared up a little bit. So I've had the old Game Ready back out, Keith.
I thought you would have stuck that on eBay, no?
By the way, anyone listening, the Game Ready machine, it's like a
revolution, wasn't it?
Yeah, compression ice sort of pack for the knee, really. You have to hook up to the wall and get your ice in it, and that was a blessing for me. But I still at times it was a case of having a steroid injection now and again to really settle the knee down when needed, and do all the bits that you can to play at elite level sport, which unfortunately does take its toll on the body.
For both of you, that must give you a little bit pause for thought. Steroid injections, cortisone injections. Look, none of us think about our liver. I don't think about my liver ever. I don't think about my stomach. I've no problems with it. But, when you kind of put it down on paper, what you put yourselves through for the guts of 10 years here and there.
It's quite scary, isn't it?
It is a bit scary, yeah.
You're obviously led. There's a duty of care, I think, we would have been involved with different medical teams. And I look back now and I think, well, did they do the right thing by me as an individual? We mentioned the Blackburn medical staff. I think in the whole, they would fight the corner of maybe if they were getting... You've got to remember as well, they're getting put under mass pressure by whatever manager it is. Look, I want Stephen Reid available for Saturday. You do whatever is needed.
Well, we saw Pep Guardiola and the Bayern Munich medical staff. He got them out.
That's right, yeah.
And the managers want the medical staff to do one thing and one thing only. And it's not to make sure that Stephen Reid doesn't have a stomach ulcer in 40 years' time.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, but yeah.
But again, it's down to, you got all types of different personalities and characters and players now, and some will play through broken legs, some will play through torn ligaments, some will get back quicker than others. Some
won't play with a broken nail. They won't, will they?
Some won't play unless they're near enough 100% fit. So no matter what happens, you're still going to have that group and that variety of characters and personalities that some will play, some won't take any medication to play, some will go out there, will limp out there onto the pitch and try and get through it. So I think it's something that's always going to be involved in the sport, especially at that elite level.
Yeah. Before we let you go, you've been in at Wimbledon the last few weeks helping out. They've got a new manager in place now, and you've moved on. Firstly, did you enjoy it? Did it whet the appetite at all to get back in, or are you back to normal life again?
Really enjoyed it, Keith. I spoke to Simon Bassey, who we've been close with for a while. He stepped in short term for a few games and just gave me a call a few weeks ago just to give him a hand and see how we got on. It was always going to be short term if a new manager come in, which has happened now. But really did enjoy it. You know, you maybe sort of wonder when you do step away for a little bit whether you will miss it. But last few weeks been really enjoyable and just sit tight now and see what opportunities might come about over the next few weeks or few months.
Well, there's a few commentary slots available here at the lads, so I'm sure they'll be on to you.
Look forward to it.
He only does the glamour ties. He only does the glamour ties. Oh my God! What's the last one he did?
That's about right. That Man U Liverpool, was it?
Man U Liverpool. Yeah, he'll do those.
Manchester. He was actually coming out. I got the call from him the day after. Yeah, the Manchester derby was the one.
That's very good of you. Very good of you. Thanks for helping us out.
Really, thanks for taking the time, pal.
Pleasure.
See you, buddy.
Pleasure as always.
Brilliantly honest as well.
Yeah.
Look, the thing is though, I mean, the downsides of being Brian O'Driscoll, you're under such a microscope, you say anything and it explodes.
Yes.
What he said last night didn't shock me. The only thing that would have surprised me there is if Stephen and you had said, we didn't really have a painkiller culture in our professions.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
I have people DMing me on Twitter there about their Division 2 GAA teams in
they're doing it.
and they're like, there's diaphene and Nurofen all over our dressing room.
Right.
It's rife. It's in every sport.
Doesn't mean it's right.
Well, I just think we probably do need to have a conversation about it because ultimately the point is it is legal. So once you draw a line, people will go right up to the line. So maybe there needs to be a conversation about bringing the line a bit further back.
Yeah.
That's the conversation.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you allow caffeine drinks and energy drinks, you lads will guzzle all them. And if you allow Nurofen and everything else...
The whole sleeping tablets and...
Yeah, I'm sure they were part of your life. Yeah.
Crazy. But you will do anything within the limits to get you any type of advantage.
You're talking about young people as well, ultimately.
Yeah, that will be led, that have trust in a medical department or a management team as a young man, 20, 21, whatever you are. You kind of take what you're told to take. Like there was a huge, what was the name of it? To bulk you up back in the day. Creatine. Like, that was the big one when I was like 18, 19, and loads of the lads were on that. But I was on a staple diet of Guinness at the time, so I didn't really need to go down that line. So I steered away from that. But that was the buzz at that time. That there's kind of trends.
There are, yeah.
But it just needs to plateau out a little bit.
Yeah. It's tricky. Like in an ideal world, we would say, well, hopefully things improve and players aren't put under pressure, and also players have more information, and therefore, you know, remember Roy Keane's book talking about Van Nistelrooy and the Dutch players,
the way he looked after
they
himself.
wouldn't play if they were injured. So in an ideal world, you would be at a point where players look after themselves and the clubs are very aware of not pushing anything on players. However, let's come back to the real world. The players want to play at all costs, they want to earn a new contract, and frankly the club have a huge game at the weekend which could be worth 100 million quid. So, you know, here's your cortisone, mate.